Okay, do you want to do the intro today? Okay. All right, take it. Oh, wait. Were you miming? Or were you actually talking? Wait, speak.
I
You were miming?
no, I was
Oh,
actually talking.
I couldn't hear you. I thought you were fucking with me. I thought you were going like,
No,
literally?
we just said okay at the same time.
Oh, okay, word. I was so confused.
Hi guys, and welcome to Lab Report, where we live, love, lab. So today we are going to just continue the discussion we started last episode and just go a little bit more in depth about the differences between working in an undergraduate research lab or being an undergraduate research assistant and working in a higher level lab, whether it's in industry or still in academia. And yeah, we have an interview lined up for next episode, which we will get into with the details towards the end. And Talia, since you are at work right now, actually, why don't you start? Tell us about your project. Like, what are you up to? What are you up to in lab?
Yeah, so my lab, I kind of touched on this like very surface level last week in our last episode. My lab focuses on understanding the mechanisms behind long-term memory formation. There's a ton of different projects happening in the lab. Some of them are wet labs, some of them are more computational, and I'm working on one of the computational projects. So I help with running behaviors in order to help us see into what different areas of the brain are involved in the long-term memory formation. We use a couple different technologies. We use photometry, fiber photometry, and we're also trying out some new stuff with something called neuropixels, which is super exciting. It's supposed to provide much better and like higher quality readings of the brain. Um, in like the simplest way possible, we basically put the mice through these VR setups that allow us to read into how they're forming these forming these memories, whether it's through high saliency or repetition of experiences. And we're currently trying out different neurotransmitter blockers to see how that might impact their memory formation. So that is a very like rough idea of what I'm doing. I'm still very much learning everything that's going on and how the narrative pieces together, but it's super exciting stuff. And like at its base, we're just trying to understand like what's involved in long-term memory and like what different parts of the brain and different changes can impact that.
Nice. That's a lot.
It
That's
is a
heavy.
lot. There's a
That's a
lot going
lot.
on.
I have like a question if you can say how like talk a little bit more about how you do that. Like how are you monitoring the mice's brain during this process and like during this whole kind of like VR experience while they're like running through it, you know?
Yeah, so basically, the postdoc I work with, Leslie, she's fantastic. She built this entire like rig where there's a ball and then the mice can like run on it and it correlates to this VR maze that they're seeing. And there's four different maze conditions. One of them is meant to be forgotten. It's like not really seen often and the reward they get is very minimal. Two of them are really salient, which is like really significant or like easy to remember because one of them gives them a lot of water, which is a reward, and then one of them puffs air in their eye. And then the other one is not as strong a reward, not as salient, but it happens a lot, so it's very frequent. And these are all rooted in the idea that memories form because they're either repeated, it's something that like you see a lot, so it sticks, or it's something that's really strong and significant. So it's like, wow, that was such like an impactful thing, it sticks with me. So through a couple different trials, we were able to prove that this method or like this behavior is very successful at mimicking the way that we form long-term memories. And the way we were able to prove that is because these mice have brain surgery done to essentially add these like fibers to their, well, they allow us to like put fibers to read the activity happening in their brain in very specific areas that we understand are involved in long-term memory formation. So as they're doing these trials, we're able to read what's happening in there. And then we're also looking at their behavior. And their behavior is, are they licking when they're expecting like a high reward or like the very frequent thing happening? Or are they not licking when they're expecting the eye puff? So once we've established that this is an effective way of mimicking how long-term memories are formed, now we're going to start adding manipulations, such as the neurotransmitter blockers to see, okay, if we block this neurotransmitter, how does that impact their behavior in this paradigm?
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that is the
Super
approach.
cool.
So you're doing a very different thing than I'm doing.
I
Would you like to
am. I'm
share?
like, feel like I'm put on the spot because, well, you just said it so eloquently. Like, you
I
talked
like,
about what you're doing so eloquently. So now I feel put on the spot. But yeah, what I'm doing is not completely, but just, of course, very different. As I mentioned, I am working at this pharmaceutical biotech company and I'm working in research and development. And there's five of us in research and development. And we work in the lab. And then in the whole company, I don't really know how many, like maybe around 60, 50 to 60 people work in the whole company. And I am kind of involved in a couple different projects, and I actually just started my own project. But the two projects I'm kind of helping with, one of them is developing these syrups because we have clients that are interested in like a sweet oral formulation that you can take with a tablespoon and with cannabis, and it has like it would be with THC and CBD, and it has some psychoactive effects and pain relieving effects. And yeah, so we're kind of working on, they taste really bitter now. So we're trying to finalize our formulation. And it's just a lot of trial and error. That's what science is. And that especially what R&D is because you just kind of have to, like, at one point, the research or the literature isn't enough. And you just kind of have to like troubleshoot. And that's kind of what we're at now because we also make chewables and we use very similar ingredients in the chewables and we use nano emulsion for the chewables and the syrups. And basically, what nano emulsion does, which is super cool, is it makes something more soluble. So, for example, it makes THC and CBD distillate more soluble in water in this instance. And it just breaks up because it breaks up the molecules into like tiny, tiny, tiny nano particles. And the effect is just way quicker because like the THC and CBD are now in these nanoparticles. They're like every bite you get or every drop of syrup that you will take like will have some THC and CBD, which is kind of you know, a big downfall when it comes to certain formulations is you don't know where the API is going to be concentrated, and API is active pharmaceutical ingredient.
Mhm.
Yes. And that was kind of a tangent, but it was just like kind of cool when I finally figured out how it works a bit. And yeah, but the chews taste pretty good, but the syrups have this like really like kind of gross, bitter aftertaste. So we're trying like all of these different things. We read somewhere that adding like 0.01% of salt, actually our coworker told us about this,
Mhm.
adding 0.01% of salt takes away the bitterness. And so now we're trying like
Okay.
different concentrations of salt and um, so that is something that we're working on. I'm working on that with Rufaro, and she's kind of the lead. And she is the lead of that project. And then this other project we're working on are vaginal suppositories or pessaries that term can be used interchangeably.
Hmm.
And we're using a really simple formulation. Like again, we troubleshot with a lot of different oils. I mean, this project started before I got there, so we tried all like Rufaro before, tried all of these different plant extracts and different oils and like castor oil, but because you're inserting it into such a sensitive area, simple is really the best option. Like the simpler, the better. And that's
Right.
also kind of what the company really stands for, like green engineering solutions, because it's just how can we use all of these natural sources and remedies, but using like super advanced biotech and technology and research.
Hmm.
Um, so these suppositories now literally just have cocoa butter, CBD, THC, and MCT oil because that helps with the stability and spreading out the API.
Hmm.
And in this case, the API is CBD and THC. And we make two concentrations, and we actually just try to make a third concentration. We make 10 milligrams. THC 100 milligrams, CBD 25 milligrams, THC 100 milligrams, CBD, and we just made 50 milligrams THC, 100 milligrams CBD, which is twice as much as like our highest previous dosage
Wow.
because we got some anecdotal reviews that this woman with endometriosis tried it. And that is like also the hard part of R&D is because you obviously want to get a lot of feedback, but it's like you have to give it to people like so and you want to get all of these different opinions. But it's like so far people have been very receptive to trying
Okay.
it.
That's good.
Yeah, like I've tried them multiple times. I think they work super well. And the whole point of these, I didn't even get into that. The whole point of the pessaries is to help relieve like period cramps and it just has like calming and soothing effects. And
Hmm.
because you're inserting it vaginally and not consuming it, like not inhaling it or consuming it orally, it doesn't go through your liver, so it bypasses first pass metabolism and it doesn't enter your bloodstream, so it doesn't reach your brain and like your blood-brain barrier, and that's where our CB1 receptor is, which when that is activated, that's usually when we get the psychoactive effect or like the feeling of being high.
Right.
But if you insert it vaginally, it doesn't like enter your blood circulation and that just leads to a lot more of like local concentration and local interaction of surrounding organs and muscles like your uterus, your vagina, your cervix.
Hmm.
So it really just helps with irritation and period pain. And we've had really good reviews so far. And one woman said that it helped her sleep even. And multiple people have said that it's helped them sleep. Multiple people have said that it's completely taken their cramps away. And this one woman with endometriosis recently tried it and she said that it did help. Like the 25 milligrams did help, but it wasn't strong enough for her. So she still
Hmm.
felt like pain because endometriosis is like some of the most severe pain you can feel,
Right.
when it comes to menstruation, like menstrual pain. So that's why we tried the 50 milligrams and Rufaro, I think, gave it to her friend this past weekend. So hopefully we get good reviews on that. And I'm also gonna try them. So we'll see. But it's really fun as well because it's trial and error. So obviously the first people who are gonna try these things are us and the people in the lab because we're the ones who made it. And if you don't feel comfortable using a product yourself, why would you feel comfortable giving it to somebody else?
Right.
And oh, and the project I kind of started myself is I kind of want to get into it a little bit later on the podcast, like maybe after this interview, because it's linked. I mean, it is a bit linked to something Carl is doing, and I want him to
Mhm.
talk about it more. But yeah, that's what I've been doing basically this past month and a half, and it's really cool. I mean, it's really cool to see how a pharmaceutical company operates. There's so much, like, I don't know if bureaucracy is the right term, but just, I don't know, I don't know if that's the right term, but basically, there's like all these procedures that you have to know and follow, and all these terms like API, SOP, and those are just so basic, like that, just SOP is standard operating procedures, but there's just all of this like apart from the science, completely separate from the science, just all of this stuff you have to know. And I feel like that's a big challenge for me coming from an undergrad research environment where all I have to worry about is the science and understanding like the science and getting my reaction right and whatever. Whereas now I have to obviously pay attention to the science and understand that. But every time I use anything, I have to log it in three different places. If I want to use something, but it's in production, I have to like you have to go a specific route, like because there are all of these clean rooms, and you can't like you have to put something in the airlock and then walk around the building, like get out of this like hazmat suit and walk around the building and get it out, like and this stuff keeps on changing all the time because this isn't like a established, I mean, it is an established company, but
Mhm.
it's still relatively new, so everyone is learning as well at the same time. Um, and yeah, there's just like all these emails about the flow, like how to walk, like how you have to walk through the building and like finished goods and how they can move through the building. And I'm looking at these charts and I'm like, I don't understand what these arrows mean. Like, I just don't get it. So that's
Yeah.
been probably the biggest challenge, not challenge, but um I guess difference, change, adapt, yeah,
Yeah,
what,
adaptation. Like,
adaptation.
yeah.
I've had to, I've encountered. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, you kind of, first of all, the stuff you're doing is like insane and it's has so much potential to like help so many people once
I
it's
think
like out
so.
there. Um,
Especially the vaginal suppositories
yeah,
because it's like that the target audience for that is literally women in general. Like I do not know one singular woman who doesn't suffer from period cramps or period
Mhm.
pain. And you don't always want to take like aspirin or because at the end of the day that's still a drug and it's not great for your stomach and even though it's pretty mild, whereas this is all natural, like everything is natural and it
Right.
has such great benefits, and it just works really well and it's easy, and yeah, and just women's health is so heavily under, and the crazy thing is I also know like all of this random stuff about it because I was telling Talia also before this, I had to give a presentation. Me and Rufaro gave a presentation to the directors recently about this product because we finalized our formulation. And yeah, so we gave our pitch why we think we should produce this product. And we got very favorable reviews. So that's very exciting. And while I was prepping for this, I did all this research and I found that cannabis has historically been used for women's health, like to help with labor pains, to help with menopausal pains, to help with menstrual pains, like for centuries, like literally centuries. So interesting, very cool. I'm very excited and passionate, if you cannot tell.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an exciting project to be a part of and like so important, like we said. So it makes sense that you're like so enthusiastic and passionate about it. But you also kind of provided a really good segue into another thing that we kind of want to touch on today, which is the fact that like coming out of an undergraduate lab experience, naturally, there's going to be a very large learning curve and big adjustment when you're going into the next step, whether that's industry, grad school, or a more intense research institution. So, Sophia and I have had our fair share of calls where we've just talked about how there's a lot that we don't understand and a lot of adjustments that have had to be made, but we also want to share some of that with you guys, especially because I think a lot of influencer and even STEM culture, you don't really hear about the harder side or like the build up that goes into getting people to the place where they are, where they're so well spoken and so knowledgeable and experienced in
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. So as Sophia, do you want to talk about some of the stuff that you notice with like the lack of, what is it? The lack of materials, having to order materials and like
Oh my God. Okay, call
everything.
out. Like,
I mean, mind you, when you're an undergrad, it's like because
yeah,
there's like
yeah,
lab
yeah.
classes and stuff, you just go to the stock room and they have everything. They plan these experiments out. They
Exactly.
have everything you need and then some. Sophia,
And
I think you had a very interesting
yeah.
experience with the
Okay,
opposite.
yeah. Actually, thanks for reminding me because I honestly, obviously, it's something I'm conscious of, but I remember being very shocked by it when I first got to work, but now it's like I'm more used to it.
Hmm.
So I honestly was not going to touch on this, but it is true because, and I think another layer of this is I'm also in South Africa, and this is also a fairly new company because
Hmm.
I did talk to Dr. DeGrande. Honestly, shout out Dr. DeGrande. I talked to him about a month ago because I was like, this is so new and crazy, and I just wanted to speak to someone familiar. Um, and if you go to a company in the States, something like Johnson and Johnson, you know, a company like that is gonna have 10 like an NMR on every single floor, is gonna if you order something from Sigma Aldrich, it'll be there the next day. You know what I mean? Like they would never
Hmm.
face anything like this. But I'm in South Africa and I'm also working at a startup. Not a startup, but a newer company. And yeah, so there is a lot of very cool and advanced machinery, but because we're R&D, we're also the newest department. So production gets all of the highest grade equipment and all the like big giant machines because what they make goes out to clients, whereas what we make, we're just testing and trying and troubleshooting. So we do have like some basic things that we had, not basic, but more standard equipment that I had in Dr. DeGrande's undergrad lab. Like we have a rotovap, we have um a flash chromatography column. Well, we just got that. We have a sonicator, like as I said, we make nano emulsion, which is pretty cool. We have a distillation column, which is really cool. I do not know how to use that thing. It's crazy. It looks crazy to me. We have like all of this stuff, but then I'm kind of okay working with TLC plates now, and I had to order TLC plates, and it was really difficult to find TLC plates because some of them were only going to be ready to ship in 2 months, some of them in a year. Like it was crazy, and I had to not just order the TLC plates, but also order the chamber. And I don't have capillary tube, so I have to use like a syringe and like really like lightly like dot it because you remember TLC plates, like you can't
Yeah,
like scratch them. You have to be so light with them
that's
or so
tough.
careful with them. Yeah, like like you just have to figure it out as you go. And we also in lab only have like 3 or 4 solvents. So I had to do like all of this literature review. Whereas in Dr. DeCrandy's lab, like, but Osra did tell me that I think this is more specific to Dr. DeGrande because when she worked in I don't remember Dr. Jang's lab after, she would often go to Dr. DeGrandy's to like use a compound or like an acid or something or a solvent because he
Yeah.
had literally everything under the sun. He had it. And he had TLC plates coming out all the time, like just like so many capillary tubes, like all these pipettes. Like we don't have pipettes. QC has
Wow.
pipettes, like quality control. They've got pipettes. Like we don't have pipettes because again, we're just the testing phase, like the figuring stuff out phase. So I was also telling Talia this is like in production, there are a set of weights, just like literal weights that are used that go from like what, zero point 0.5 grams to 2 kilograms to calibrate the weights, and they're in production, and it's such a hassle to get stuff out of production that when me and Rufaro were doing crushing tests for these pessaries, we literally weighed out random stuff in the lab, like my laptop, a jar of THC distillate, and used that to perform our crushing tests. So but it's fun. Like that's also what like the basics of science are. Not the basics, but it's some ways it's like you figure it out, and
Mhm.
I really enjoy that aspect because, like of course we use literature and base things on literature, but when you only have a certain amount of supplies, you have to get creative and think from a different perspective and, find solutions. And it's challenging, but it's exciting. So, yeah, that's what I gotta say about that.
Do you feel like any of your experiences in undergrad helped you with adapting to slash figuring out how to go about that? Or do you think it's just like you figured it out on the job, like anyone can figure it out as long as they like use their resources and
I think yes and no. Like, I
Mhm.
think just working in the lab environment in general was very beneficial because I catch on very quick. But I think that it's just a big learning curve for anyone. And there's nothing that can prepare you for it. And also, every work environment is going to be different, And I don't think like I just do think that this is a bit more out of the ordinary
Mhm.
than what you would get if you worked at a more established pharmaceutical company, or again, I don't know why I said that, but I guess more established is kind of correct.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a fair characterization.
but yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, yeah, it's definitely an adjustment going from because also like I think it's important to highlight the fact that like we had many years of experience in research under our belts. You worked in multiple labs. We were TAs. We did decent in our classes. And then
Mm.
it's like you
Decent girl, give us more credit than that. We did good. Like we
Okay,
did good in our classes.
we did well in our classes. And then as prepared as you feel leaving undergrad, you come into these new environments and there is like a lot of learning and adjustment to go. For me, I think my biggest thing has been going from one model in one area of research to another
Hmm.
and having to realize like I don't actually know how to read a research paper. There's a lot more that goes into reading this and like actually
Right.
understanding what's happening. Like in undergrad, it was like, okay, I read this paper, I learned this method I'm going to apply to my research, or even like I'm presenting this
Bruno.
paper to the class. This is what happened. This is why it happened. Here we go. And then I showed up to my like here, Rockefeller, where we do journal clubs. And I'm sitting here and they're like, so why do you think they did that? That didn't make any sense. Can you explain this
I
method to
know,
me? Like,
bro.
why did they use this model? Why did they make this conclusion? I'm just here like I've never had to read a paper and like be like, why did they do that? That didn't make any
I
sense to me.
know. I know.
And
I know.
it's I think that's where like most of my like, oh my gosh, I'm in over my head feeling has come from. But at the same time, I've just been like reminding myself that first of all, undergrad is nothing like grad school, industry, like intense research. Like that's
No.
something that you have to learn and adapt into as you experience it. But two, it's not like all hope is lost. You're going to learn these things as you do them. Like you're figuring things out as you're doing stuff on the job. The more papers I read, the more I'm learning, the more I'm like, okay, I know this method now. Okay, I know how to read this paper. Let me read five more and I'll parse out this information. Um, so I think it's important to highlight too the fact that when as prepared as you feel coming out of undergrad, sometimes you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you start in your new step, but that doesn't mean you can't get to where you were before. It's just going to take some experience and some time.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. As
Um,
obvious as that seems, I've been learning that.
I know. And it's like, in some ways, it feels, we've also discussed this, like every time you learn something or feel more comfortable, you hear something else or learn something new, and you feel as if you've taken two steps backward, like one step forward, two steps backward.
Hmm.
But I do just want to highlight like how much progress both of us have made. And for me, 1.5 months, for you, 4.5 months, four
Yeah,
months?
more
Yeah,
or
four and a
less.
half months. Because I remember when we were talking when I first started, when you first started, we definitely could not speak as confidently as we just did about what we're doing. And even just have this conversation with so much fluidity and just casualness. Even though there's still so much for us to learn and so much
Hmm.
we don't know, I do just think that we catch on quick. We're doing good. Like I'm proud of both of us. So,
Yes, agreed. And it's also not like we get to like a point of like, oh, we understand everything and it's like it plateaus. Like even my PI all the time is like, I'm learning this. I just learned this new thing. I just figured out this new thing that I didn't know before. And like the postdoc I work with, she has her PhD and we were reading a paper that I'm presenting
hmm
next week. And even she was like, I've never heard this method before. I need to go learn this. So it's
I
like
know,
there's still
bruh,
so
I
much
know.
room.
Even like everyone is always like learning new stuff, like
Mhm.
at the same time. And why I think I'm very happy about my experience because I also think that the people I work with are pretty unique. Like Pete, my boss, he this is his first time being like really, really employed, and he's literally the founder of this company, and he's just, I think he's very smart. No, I think he is very smart
Mhm.
and very ambitious. And so in some ways there's so much that he knows, like so much that he knows that I have no idea when he's speaking. I'm like, what are you talking about? But
Mhm.
when it comes to something like a TLC play, he's like, I've never seen or done this before. Like, explain to me how to do this, you know? And it's kind of cool to get like both those perspectives, I guess. And yeah, it's just, I guess that's a good segue into talking about who we're gonna interview next week
Yeah.
because he works with me in R&D and his name is Carl, and he has had a very unconventional, probably the most unconventional path in science that I have met or I've heard. Maybe Pete and Carl like are on the same level, but or compete for that. But he's just very interesting. I'm very lucky that I get to work with him so closely, and I yeah, I'm excited for you guys to listen in and for you to hear his story like firsthand. So yeah.
Yeah, in that vein, November is going to be the beginning of us having like more structure to how we go about these podcast episodes. So kind of like we mentioned in the last episode, we're thinking of switching it up where we have interviews and general conversation slash advice for the first week, and then we'll have some more like fun and insightful things in the coming weeks, whether it's crazy horror stories or things that happen in the lab, the newest advancements of the month, or cool stories of how things came to be. And as we always tell you guys, if you have anything you want to get advice on, you want to hear about, anyone you want us to talk about, just let us know in the comments or let us know on our Instagram and we'll integrate that into the schedule so that you guys can hear what you're interested in hearing.
And also, I just want to say a round of applause and appreciation for Talia for all the amazing editing because I don't know Y'all saw the Instagram reel that we posted, which you should see. Yeah. So thank you, Talia, for the editing. And like last episode was Chef's Kiss and all the reels and all
So
the episodes.
true. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, with about a minute left, we, I guess, can close this out. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Next week slash next month is really exciting. We have very exciting interview coming up, as Sophia said, and she's going to have him in the flesh with her. So
Yes, yes, yes.
it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe, keep tuning in, share with your friends, let us know what you guys think. We're always trying to improve. And with that, we will see you guys next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.